right, everybody. Well, welcome to Town Hall 48. It's Wednesday, February 17, and yeah, we've done 48 of these. You know, you think about once a week, and we skipped. This is coming up on probably the anniversary of the start of this in a couple of weeks, when I just said, "Hey, Mike, would you join me on this? I'm not sure what's going to happen here, and might as well get a bunch of people together and try to figure it out."
Hey, and it worked. It worked.
Yeah, it has. It's been a unique experience. We're thankful to have you join it. We're also thankful for Credit Union Council's CUNA Council, GAC next week, virtual GAC next week. My name's John Best. I'm the CEO, co-founder of Best Innovation Group. And with me is my hosting partner. Occasionally I can't be on a call and Mike takes over, and occasionally he can't be here. But we both try to be here at the same time as much as possible. Mike Lawson from CU Broadcast. And for those of you that haven't seen CU Broadcast, CUBroadcast.com, check it out. There's pictures of Lawson all over the place. If you like his smiling face, that's where to find him. And he also sponsors this with us, so we're thankful for his support. Today, we are very excited to have a member of the Symitar division of Jack Henry. We have Brynn Ammon with us. She is the Consulting and Custom Solution Guru Director. What is it, Brynn? Did I get it?
I like Guru. Guru's good.
Guru's good. Guru's good. She's joining us today. And what we wanted to talk about is, and this is kind of an ongoing series. Last week we had Jeff Dent, who was with Correlation. Today we've got Brynn. We just wanted to talk to cores about kind of what's happening here. You know, one of the things, and I'll mention this just as a plug, the virtual GACs next week, and we pre-recorded a segment where I facilitated a roundtable of some pretty impressive credit union CEOs. Mike Valentine from BCU. We had Crystal Long from GCU out in El Paso. A friend of the show, Tom O'Shea, who's maybe on. I don't see him yet, but and one other one. Who's the other one we had? Oh, it was John Janklius from Partners Credit Union.
Oh wow!
So all-star cast there. And what was interesting about it was we were talking about this great reset. Okay, so just recently the World Economic Forum, sort of the guy who runs it, kind of came out and coined sort of the next few quarters as what he's calling the Great Reset. And so to frame it, he said there's a lot of opportunity in this as people sort of come out of, get vaccinated and come out of this, and how things have changed. And in talking with the CEOs, they definitely echoed that. And I'll give just a little background on some of the things they said. So one of the ones I thought that was most entertaining for me, since I don't work at a credit union anymore, I live in my little hole here in the basement, was they're no longer buying our crap that how long something takes. They saw us roll out, 1,000 laptops to all these, in one day, everybody was able to work from home. And 2 days later, we upgraded to digital to solve problems in 3 days. And so what they've realized is that, hey, you've been sandbagging us, or at least that's what they think. And now they're not buying our timelines. And the way Mike put it, I thought was the most, Mike Valentine was the most politically correct. He said, I find that the credit union can do a lot very quickly if we're focused. And by focused, I mean, yeah, when your pants are on fire, it turns out you can put them out pretty fast. You're pretty focused on that problem. But no, I do see that that's going to be the new norm, right? So there's a pace change. But then there was, interesting to hear them. I think by and large, most of them said work from home is permanent. Another round, what are we going to do with the space we do have? There was a lot of interesting ideas there. And then there was this other kind of concept out there of this new sort of digital approach and what happens with branches. Not saying shut them down, but we've always talked about, the branch change, it's going to change. Well, that seems to have been accelerated, particularly as they move into new markets. So, Brynn, I know you're in charge of the customs solutions and consulting, and one of the things that occurred to me is just the cores being one of our primary partners. Oh, and one of the other things I thought was interesting is every CEO echoed, we figured out which of our partners could do things and which of them couldn't. And so they all kind of said, that really, this moment shook out any of their partners that weren't capable of keeping up. And they're planning on replacing them. I thought that was very interesting. So Brynn, from your perspective, what have you seen? And talk a little bit about how this has affected. You guys are effectively the largest provider in the cranium space. Talk to me a little bit about how this has changed your thinking or your strategy inside of Symitar.
Yeah, no, I think that it's really interesting that you mentioned the CEOs that you just talked to recently, and the fact that they were able to identify vendors that could keep up and those that couldn't. I think one of the biggest shifts that happened for us immediately, again, when your pants are on fire, you can do things pretty quickly, was all of the implementations projects that we had in flight. Last February, a year ago now, we had a number of clients that were scheduled into implementation and migration projects where we would be sending people on site, and we couldn't just stop doing that work. We had to figure out a way to effectively convert clients, and anybody who's been through a core conversion knows that that's not an easy project under normal circumstances. But in some cases we had clients that were mid-flight, right? Like they're right in the middle of their conversion project.
Like the power
supposed
goes
to
out
have somebody
surgery.
come on site next week. Oh wait, no, we're not going to come on site next week. You're on your own.
Wow.
So we really had to kind of figure out, what does this look like, and how do we adjust to make sure that we can successfully migrate these clients and convert these clients. And so we took a 3-month outlook. We looked at 3 months, and then on a rolling 3-week strategy, we contacted every client that had an on-site engagement within the next 3 weeks. And we said, okay, you're up in the next 3 weeks. This is what the industry, or this is what the world looks like today. We don't feel comfortable sending somebody to you. You don't feel comfortable having somebody come to you. Early on, a year ago, it was nobody's doing anything, so we're not going to send somebody to you. And this is what it's going to look like. And we leverage technology. We leverage Microsoft Teams a lot to stand up 100% staffed watch sessions and hotlines, so that instead of having people on site, we had a manned team session that would go throughout the duration of what would have been an on-site engagement.
So like a day in the life was done remote. And I did talk to someone who finished a conversion during that process and told me they actually liked it. But so like a day in the life is normally where you have all these people and you ship a few of them out to every branch so they can be there for comfort. And instead of that, you were using Teams. And I could see
fully remote.
Yeah, that's a big shift.
Yeah. Yep. So we've over the last year, we've done 165 events that normally would have been on site. We've done those all remote.
So how's that going to change for the future, Brynn?
It's interesting that you asked that, Mike.
Hybrid approach?
Yep.
Are you guys going to have a hybrid? Or how's
that's kind of where we're at right now, is trying to figure out, what does that look like, right? So we recognize that we've been successful, and John just mentioned it. We've had our goal at Symitar is always to have clients be referenceable day one when they convert, and we've still continued that throughout the pandemic. So as clients have come up new on the system, they're referenceable day one. We actually have a client right now that's in the middle of their conversion that's referenceable now before they even converted. We had 2 clients throughout this whole process that weren't comfortable doing remote work. They're very, very small. They weren't comfortable with that whole process, and they asked us to postpone their conversion. And we worked with them, we worked with their staff, and we were able to make it work. And the CEO of that credit union said, you can tell anybody anybody anywhere to call me, because I am a believer and a supporter. I haven't even converted yet, and I love what you guys have done for us.
Wow.
And so, that speaks to the process and, and just being able to work together. But anyway, back to the question. So we have kind of looked at this and said, well, one of the benefits that you get is obviously more work time. When we have employees traveling, we lose work hours because they're traveling during work hours, and then that's less time that they can work on somebody's conversion or work on a consulting engagement or do work. So it's cheaper for the client. It's also more effective. So as an organization overall, corporately, actually, on the Jack Henry banking platforms, as well as on the Symitar platform, we're looking at how do we move forward with continuing some of the remote work that we've done to this point, and what does that look like into the future. It might not be that all remote things stay. There are some things that probably make more sense to have, have a body, have somebody in person.
Right.
But but definitely looking at how do we continue to reduce the overhead for the client and be able to do more in the future.
But you guys have discovered a way to do it way more efficiently and cost effectively for the credit union, which bodes well for credit unions, so, and you guys as well, or all the cores out there, so it's a two-way street, and it's really benefiting both parties, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool.
Yeah, Paul from First Financial was mentioning that, Teams is now providing community event pieces. Like Microsoft knows they've got an opportunity here. This is their moment to sort of deal with Zoom and deal with Slack, but that's a whole different function. But yeah, I think it's fascinating, because had you tried to say, this is how we're going to do it, like if you've gone into a customer and tried to sell this process without sort of the pressing need of COVID, you would never have been able to sell it. And that's what's fascinating to me, is that the perspective of, if I've walked into any boardroom and said, hey, guess what? I'd like to see if maybe 100% of this place could work remote. I can remember them fighting over one or two people doing that. So, the impetus of this has changed the complexion of how we do business. And I think it's cool that Symitar understands that. I also think it's cool that you're looking at how you can reflect that from not only from being expeditious about projects, but also cost effective. You're right. All those plane tickets and the time you lose in the air and the risks you take with the weather and all the other things, I got to imagine that, projects probably have some percentage of completion that maybe 25% or something. That's a lot faster, because there's no worrying or waiting. And what's the real difference when you're trying to teach somebody something with the tools we have? So I think that's definitely been a highlight to see the rest of the world sort of embrace that. I also think, and shifting gears a little bit from a member perspective, we've seen organizations adopt Zoom with an appointment type piece. One of the things I heard a lot from the CEOs, and one of them's here with us is Tom, and he'll usually chime in, was they're looking to sort of take the now that they're sort of forced into this sort of appointment setting type of business for particular types of transactions because the face-to-face wasn't there, they were looking to push the CRM mechanism out a lot further into the edge of the organization than it had been previously. Was that something you guys experienced as well? Is not only do they want to, because if it works for you to do a conversion, God knows it'll work to do a mortgage, right? I mean, it has to. So did you see any requests like that, and maybe speak to that a bit?
Yeah, so I don't know how much my team specifically has seen some of that, but I do know that from a conjecture standpoint, so as my consultants are out working with our clients, they are definitely seeing our clients use technology in new ways, whether that is connecting the CRM with the appointment scheduling and that type of thing on the front end, to better visibility of the overall relationship that the client has or the member has, and using that prior to getting on a call or on a video chat or even having an appointment with the member. But also, one of the things that I found interesting that one of the consultants was sharing with me that they saw at a credit union recently was the use of video to confirm identity. So, in the past, if you're going to do something like, that's a high risk transaction, like a wire, now the member would need to come into the lobby to sign a form, or they need to, fax their picture of their driver's license or something like that. But instead of doing that, we'll just cut to the end and do a video conference with you, a video call with you, And now I can see that, your picture matches the driver's license that we have on file, and you appear to be in the right age for what your birthday is. And
Right.
but that the fraudsters won't accept the opportunity to do a video. And so, that really does help to, do that identification for some of those high risk transactions. So I found that, pretty interesting, and seeing again that way to kind of leverage technology across the board.
Well, and that's what I kind of see coming out of this, is that, especially for your group, that, okay, so we've taken this sort of abstract tool set, right, that aren't really sort of, like, for example, I could see that I just did my first online notary. I haven't done that before. I needed to notarize. I just bought a car and I needed to notarize something. I did through Carvana, which was fascinating, a very different experience, which at some point I'll share. But the point of it was that the first thing she said was, okay, we're going to turn on the video, and for you and the other person, which weren't in the same room, so we're all on sort of their own version of a Zoom, and they wanted to record all that. Presumably, that recording gets attached to whatever the digital signatures are up to the document, so that were that someone were to come back and question that, it would be put together. But what we have going on here, I think, is the phase one of that, where, okay, let's use an ad hoc sort of version like Zoom or Teams or whatever we can find. But eventually what I would see is, okay, we just confirmed Brynn through this video thing. The file is out there. We need a pointer to the file somewhere in the core that represents this conversation that went with this loan. That was the confirmation piece. So, that's the shift I see coming, is we've ad hoc'd all these really cool tools, but they're, that those chickens will come home to roost, and someone's going to come back and go, how'd you confirm them again? Oh, we did it via this, and, well, do you have record of that somehow? We can keep record of looking at their ID. Why would we? But because it's available, it could be a change. Is that sort of what you guys are thinking in that regard?
Well, it's funny, as you say that, everything revolves around what your auditors or your audit team or your internal auditors, the external auditors want,
Sure.
right? So I agree that I think that there's going to be a heavy need for, just because we can track it means we should, even if we hadn't tracked the predecessor in the past. And yeah, I would agree 100%. I think that that there are opportunities for ensuring that logs are kept and maintained regardless of what solution is being used. Whether it's something that's generated from the core, whether it's something that you mentioned, is a whatever is the best video technology that we can grab at the moment. There's going to have to be some tracking mechanisms with that. And a lot of that will depend on, on the way the engagement starts. I think, if it's a session that starts from your CRM solution, or if it's a session that starts from your core solution, or if it's a session that starts from your digital solution, I think that all ties back into the whole concept of, if you've heard Ben Metz, who leads our digital strategy, or even Dave Foss, who leads Jack Henry, talk about, digital in this age. They talk about meeting the member in the moment of need, or meeting the customer in the moment of need. And that all just kind of ties together with, whatever, with what we're talking about right now, whatever that solution that starts, you have to be able to carry that from one platform to the next. And that's all about, using open APIs and making sure that everything talks to each other. But, the ability to start a conversation on your mobile app that, gets transitioned to a call center employee, that, that kicks off a workflow, that, and then having the audit trail for that whole component is definitely paramount.
Yeah, I think continuity is something that's been missing in every organization, and it's always difficult, specifically when, you start something in one channel, you call in, and they seem to be clueless as to what has happened, and that's never a good look for the organization. It's certainly not something that the member would, expect to hear is, they expect to, in today's day and age, they expect all that to be tied together. And it's certainly a challenge for legacy systems, for systems that are coming along. I think that over time, I think, I had this idea that yesterday I was thinking, when we bring a fintech on and we go, hey, fintech, and they show up, you're some credit union, you go, give me all your docs, right? But, that should be reciprocal in a way. I mean, as a credit union, you should have a set of docs if you intend on integrating that's sort of pre-vetted, that has all that. I don't think we're thinking that way, but we should be. And so I think that's the future as we go on. Speaking of that, and I want to make sure I hear all your cool stories from the customers. So don't let me get by that, but I'll ask this quick question. I want to get any of the anecdotal stuff that you've heard, because those are really interesting to me. But I've known Symitar to be a very, and by the way, this isn't a negative thing. It's how I've known it for the years I've been there. A very good teller platform. Can I put it that way? When it came to sort of that over-the-counter service of delivering, hey, I need to make this deposit. It was a good system. But it feels like with this, there's a shift. And it seems like that the service portion of it is less of the focus for the next round of business, and the sales / growth portion of it. And so what we heard from the CEOs in the GAC roundtable was we see a shift in strategy where a service center is more about how many clicks we can get a member onboarded, and how many services and products we can push through for them, and less about how many checks can they deposit and how quickly can they get through the drive-through line. That seems to me that would be a pretty big shift for in thinking. So does that prompt, as you hear that from your executive, I know you guys have your executive groups and things like that where you get advisory, does that prompt a shift in strategy inside Symitar to think about, hey, we maybe don't need to put all the effort into trying to get this to work over the counter or digitally? Maybe we need to put more effort into our Meridian Link interface or whatever it is that we're using for onboarding. So just maybe a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, obviously we'd be foolish if we weren't having those conversations, right? So, we do meet with our advisory board members. We have 3 different advisory boards, and we meet with them on a recurring basis and absolutely have some of these conversations with them. I think what you'll see, or what we see and what we're kind of focusing on really is, and I just kind of mentioned it, open API, right? Really providing services-based infrastructure to be able to allow our clients to do what they need to do, and let us maintain the one record of truth. And so, I would agree, Epicus does tellering really well, but I also would say that Epicus does servicing well. So maintaining and servicing everything that has to do with the financial components for your members is what we do. Now, how you send us the information, or how the information comes in, is different from every institution, and has the flexibility to be different from every institution. And that's part of the beauty of the platform, and that's part of the beauty of having an open system.
Well, it's the double-edged sword, right? I mean, again, it's good and bad,
Yeah.
And that's where I come back to the documentation, because I agree you're great at servicing and then tellering, but I think that one of the challenges I'm seeing is not just a shift in the technology, and I think you make a good point of that. It's a shift in the culture, right? I just went through this experience with Carvana where, and the first thing it did was it got my email. That was the very first thing it did, because I was kind of poking around, but if you go to most credit union sites, the email is like one of the 3rd or 4th things. And so, and that growth perspective and how to shorten that amount of time and to create, because what's happening is we're not competing with each other. We're competing with Carvana, like not so much
Right.
Carvana, but that experience, like our loan experience needs to be in line with that, because anybody can go do it. It's not like it's a closed club or it's geographically locked in. It's an open world in digital. And so that comparison that's happening in the digital space is creating, I think, a difficult set of expectations. And I think that that's been escalated from COVID. I think that, for example, one of the things we did some research on, just to share, that I found fascinating, was I started going into, so Google Play is kind of an open thing that you can do when you look at reviews. In other words, it's got an API, so you could suck down all the information out of it. And what I did was I kind of went looking for, mobile apps and, mobile banking apps, excuse me, they're all mobile apps, but, and looking for what the top comments were. And I can't tell you how many RDC comments I saw. And my thinking on that is that there's some dude that's, and I kind of always take it back to my own thinking, but there's some guy that always put his checks into the ATM or always gave it over the counter, knew the RDC existed, but didn't bother. One day he finally does, or she finally does, and has a bad experience because because they're not heavily digital, their phone is 2-3 years old. The camera isn't great. They didn't understand that, in order to take a picture of the check, you got to light it like a Hollywood movie star. You got to have like makeup and make it beautiful and get it right in the spot. But that's the point, right? And so when that doesn't work, that's a little like if I drove to a branch expecting it to be open and it was closed. I might try a second time, but on the third time, I'm not going back. And so there was a ton, I think, of new people that were sort of having that experience out there. And I know Ben and I have talked about this too. So how does that shift? How do credit unions sort of partner with you, your custom solutions group, to sort of, I don't know, reconcile that? Like, how do we look at all these new people that came in the function, and what are the opportunities that besides the open API, which I know is just sort of a blanket wide open opportunity, but how do you sort of take all these partners? Is it something to do with your particular, branded partners, or is it something, I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out how they get from A to B.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that our consulting team, the Sim Advisor team, has done really well is provide services in and around that whole discussion, right? So one of the things that we offer as an engagement with our clients is the ability to work through just process mapping. What does a process look like for your member? What does the process look like for your employees? And then how do we streamline? How do we make things more efficient? What are we seeing in the industry? What are your peers doing? What did I just work on with credit union ABC that you can leverage their
That's
knowledge
cool.
and their thought process too, to really start to have these conversations on how do we change the mindset of how we do business as an industry, and as a credit union. And one of the things that we've done a lot of work on recently with our credit union partners is risk-based check holds. And so really specific to the
That's a
RDC
huge
problem,
one.
right?
That one was a quick exposure. So many people, they're used to going to the bank, and because that person, and let's tell everybody what it is in case they don't know. So, it's the concept of, I've been with the credit union for 20 years. I have $1 million in my account. I go put a $3,000 check into the ATM, and it gives me 300 available and holds on to the check for 2 days. And that's frustrating to when they used to go in over the counter and the teller would eyeball me and go, "It's John." And without telling me, sort of as a back thing, I just wouldn't notice. I didn't know she was doing this or he was doing this, is that they're releasing that hold.
Yep.
And so automated hold processing, something James and I built many, many, many years ago because we discovered that was an issue, that's a great example of a back burner project, I think, that has become a front burner project because it's unacceptable to the members who are now using it, right?
Yeah, and the ability to make it channel agnostic is really the important part, right? So like you said, it's one thing to, that I can go into the branch and Sally knows who I am because I see her every week. And it's something that if I put it in the ATM and, I know I'm putting it in my branch's ATM and my branch knows who I am and they pull my check out and they go, "Oh yeah, it's Brynn's check." Sure, well, we won't give it a hold. But then when you start doing it during remote, using remote deposit capture, then it's something completely different. And now it's a different department and they're a back office and they don't know who I am. And then now I have a bad experience
to the member.
Yep, absolutely.
Like, well, is this a whole other company? I don't understand why doing it this way is any different than this way, if it's any different than this way. And to be fair, there's going to be more of that, right? We're not just, You look at PayPal
Yep.
and what they've been doing with some of their e-checks and how they've been moving forward. So this idea of being service channel agnostic is probably something you're hearing a lot. That's a great point. So is that becoming like a, but the problem is you can't make it a blanket project because everybody's got a different
Yep.
a different ATM processor. Everybody's got a different RDC processor. Yeah, I mean, that seems like a big challenge.
I mean, there's definitely some hooks that we have in the core that that are parameterized that allow a client to get most of the way there
Mhm. But
without
the
any
other guys still
involvement.
got to acknowledge it.
Right, but that's the challenge, is working with the other vendors. And then the other problem too, I think a lot, at least with some of the clients that we've worked with, is less about the technology and more about the concept. It's more about wrapping your head around what should this look like? What should the limits look like? What should the matrix look like? How often should we change the limits? And when should they be enforced and through which channels, and what does agnostic really look like? And I think that there's a whole piece there that really does go along with the uniqueness of each institution and the risk appetite at each institution, that lends itself to that consulting engagement a little bit better, to help be walked through that process
Yeah,
and really understand what that looks like.
yeah, I like what you said earlier about mapping the process because the tendency is to just take the process we have and digitize it. And
Yeah.
we both know that's sort of a cliche in the digital space, and so the idea that you can push them through that. But what I hear you talking about, and it seems like you guys are trying to tackle this, is certainly something we here at Big are working. We just got a call today, just kind of out of the blue about it, where people are realizing that not only just the technology, it's never about technology, it's always about people, and the culture shift is actually the bigger and more challenging part. So it's one thing to sort of put this thing in place and suddenly members can do this. And when I say culture shift, I think the other thing is to not only acknowledge the internal and staff culture shift, but actually the external member culture shift. I believe that every credit union has fostered a certain member culture that is their own.
Yeah.
It's sort of a list of rules of engagement or expectations and a way of being that is sort of has some connection to the credit union personality, if you will. And I'm being ambiguous, but that's kind of where I'm getting at. And so in the sense that if you're going to shift your internal culture and suddenly say, hey, Joe Blow member, because what's also going to happen is inevitably is comparison, right? You ever see the monkey grape cucumber presentation? So you got two monkeys, they give the one monkey cucumber and he's like, great. But then they give the monkey right next to him a grape. Well, first they give him a cucumber and they're both fine. Then they give him another cucumber and they give the monkey next to him a grape. First monkey sees it and like literally takes the cucumber and throws it at the dude. Right. And that's where we're at, not only with our competitors, but even amongst the members. Right. So if a member goes, well, yeah, I just deposited, I put $5,000 in, it was fine. And the next member goes, well, I put a $5,000 check in and I could only do 300. So there's a culture shift there. And there's also training to the staff and explaining these things. And anytime you make it, it's like this ecosystem where any subtle change sort of causes a domino effect. And it sounds like you guys are trying to address that to some extent.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer. Well, I'm a kind of a process junkie, so it's just inherent. But I'm a firm believer that you got to understand the process, whether that's the process from the member to member, member to institution, department A to department B, institution to vendor, whatever that flow looks like. Really understanding all of that is important. It's funny you said about how fast we did this, and you're right. We can stand up as an institution. You could stand up this digital stuff all day long, but a lot of times what we're seeing is that the process that is happening in the back office is still the same process. Whether that is that I got 15 spreadsheets and a ream of paper that I'm managing each day, or, I'm going to 10 different sites to do the work that I need to do. We're seeing that's also happening is that there's an opportunity there to kind of review that end-to-end process from the moment of engagement with the member all the way through to complete at the backside, and making sure that we're as efficient as we can be in optimizing workflow.
Yeah, and I think you just brought up a couple good points. One of the other things I'm seeing really take life in the grading space is RPA, robotic process automation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because it seems like that's an opportunity for someone like you as well. I feel like the connectivity into it, while it's okay, could be better. And so it's interesting because that feels like an ad hoc cure to a lacking API infrastructure. And we're seeing people make great progress with that. I think that's an important thing for people to sort of understand, and particularly that this is a tool that's out there for them. So I want to make sure we get to some of the folks on the call, but before we get there, just on the idea that there's this sort of process automation, I think the automatic holds were a really good one. What else did you guys see? Like, for example, sharing screens in Symitar, like some of that I would think would actually be even easier for support. Like people were trying to get to that point and never did get there, and then they suddenly got there. Was that something where there was any other thought of sort of built-in strategy to adopt? Or, you guys are large enough and have done this in the past to buy I don't know, I'm going to use an example of Pop.io, or somebody like that, and go, yeah, we're going to make this with your, with the company you already have that does that sort of thing, as you did with Gizio, so is that something that is being looked at as well as part of the strategy?
Yeah, I think that we're seeing a lot more opportunity with our workflow team, with our enterprise workflow product that's sold by Jack Henry, as an opportunity to definitely, back to kind of the RPA, to look at how do we automate these processes with that solution. One of the things that I know that we're doing a lot of right now on the consulting team is looking at doing paperless accounts payable. So if you think about, most institutions pre-COVID, everybody sat in the same building, and paper invoices came in the mail every day, and then, or if they came in via email, somebody in accounting printed them off every day, put them in a folder. And it always amazed me. It didn't matter the size of the institution, it didn't matter the technological,
it always had that same
advancement.
guts.
Yep, yeah. That's always the process. And so now there's really a push to, let's automate this and let's make it be seamless, and we do have the ability to do that, with the combination of a number of different tools at our disposal. And so, I think that that's another thing, back to kind of answer your question, that we've definitely seen that's a strategy for our clients to use moving forward.
Any other like hot button, like I could see automated hold decisioning. That's what I call the hold decisioning across the channels. Any other hot buttons where people like had as a back burner and suddenly it's a front burner?
Yeah, actually, the other one that we saw huge was contactless cards. So, contactless cards may have been on the radar. Maybe it's something that we're thinking about doing. But now all of a sudden it's hot. We got to do it like right now. And, any cards project, kind of like a conversion, not a small, short turnaround type,
it's not a trivial undertaking, no.
But I've got a consultant right now that's working with one of our clients on kind of helping to project manage their contactless card project, and they just finished last month with the first wave, and so really in about 6 months they turned contactless on, which is pretty impressive. Again, given the length of time that it normally takes to do those kinds of projects. So, but That's definitely a big one. The other one I think that we're seeing a lot more push to are e-sign products, whether that's DocuSign, whether that's Synergy e-sign, whether that's IMM e-sign, whoever, the vendor doesn't really matter, but really that push to make sure that you've got some type of electronic signature platform set up. And I think that the next thing that's going to come from that is going to be a true review of what forms actually need a signature. Because for years, credit unions hold on to back to the audit conversation we had a couple minutes ago, right?
Right.
That
This has to be notarized. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
But, yeah, but we've got to have a papers. We've got to have a wet signature. We've got to have a
I don't
signature. We've
sleep
got
at
to have a
night if
form.
I don't have my notary, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so much of that isn't necessary, and it's not legally required, and it's just it's because we've always done it that way. And so I think that it'll be forced to go through that kind of that review process as you look at okay, well, now I'm paying per hit. I'm paying the e-sign company per form that you send out for me. Maybe I want to reconsider how many forms I'm actually sending on a daily basis, and and let's get rid of all these unnecessary forms. So
yeah, I think reconstructing some of those processes has been in the works forever. But again, like you said, they were back ordered to other things. Like one of the ones I feel like is out there, and I saw a lot of comments on it, is I still believe there's a big gap in real-time payments for credit cards and basically off-host services, FICS or any kind of mortgage servicing platform, mortgage bot, whatever it is, and then third-party credit cards that aren't stored on the core, because you just see people going, well, I put money in and I tried to go use it, which I guess is the thing. I put 400 in and I want to go spend that 400. I don't know, whatever the trick is, but and they can't, because now they're being forced to not do that as an over-the-counter payment, or however they did it before, and or they just found out about this and now they're doing it this way as opposed to mailing in their payment, and they're surprised when it's not real time, when everything, it'd be like, I liken it to this. You ever been to, it's a little weird, so go with me here, all right? You ever been to a bathroom and like the toilet's got the wavy thing, it flushes on its own, and then the sink automatically turns on, but then the paper towel holder, for whatever reason, is not. Like, I spent like 20 minutes trying to conjure a paper towel, and some dude looked at me and went, what? And just pulled it out. And I was like, well, I thought everything else in here is touchless. I figured that this was going to be, it's almost like that kind of paradigm, right? Where, all these things everything on that entire system is real time. If I transfer my savings to whatever, it all seems like it happens then. But for some reason that I don't understand, because I'm not in the credit union space, when they make a credit card payment, it's not real time. What's up with that?
Yeah, no, I have to laugh. It's funny that you use that analogy, because I just had that whole thought at a restaurant the other day. I was like, wait a minute. So anyway, I'm with you, but but I will say we do have a number of third-party partners that we've been working with to enable real-time adapters to our external loan platform. So for PSCU and the FICS and some of those other vendors that provide those offline service and that are doing your offline servicing for for the client or for the credit union, we do have the ability to make and receive real-time communication. So vendor or credit member can make the payment and it is being applied real time, which is something that hasn't historically happened in the past. So we're working with the vendors as they come to the table. We just recently rolled out the real-time adapter with Co-op and their credit card platform, and then we've got a couple more in the pipe right now that are coming here soon, which is good. But yeah, I would agree that there is still a level of that that exists depending on the third party that the credit union is working with. But we do hope that we can continue to move forward with getting as many of those up to speed on the real-time platform as possible.
So what are the other, before I head over, I like to take the last 10 to 15 minutes to get questions from the audience, but before I head there, what other things that are, I think this is really good for everyone to hear, because everyone else is making this into a push. I'll throw out one I know of, other asset classes for loans, solar, with, that's a big one. And the core isn't necessarily completely designed to handle these interesting, asset classes, particularly from a servicing space. So that's one. I don't need to go into it deeply, but that's what I'm hearing. But what else are you hearing?
So, one of the areas that I think we're seeing a lot of attention that hasn't historically gotten attention in credit unions in the past is the collections area. Loan modifications are huge right now, and being able to work a process that is efficient and makes sense in that regard is something that we're doing a lot of work with on the consulting team. The other thing that we're seeing a lot of, it really does kind of go to what you were just mentioning with solar, is commercial lending. So, stuff that you wouldn't consider normally to be serviceable in in a credit union legacy core platform. We are working with clients to show them that it is possible to service their commercial loans in EPSIS, and find the ways that it makes sense for them and for their institution. So we're doing a lot of that work, and obviously too, as PPP picks up now into round 3, there's a number of different opportunities that we've given our clients from the Jack Henry level, whether that's referring to a new partner to do PPP for their members, or whether it's having a front end relationship with Wolters Kluwer and letting the application flow that way and then flow into EPSIS and then be serviced in EPSIS, has been beneficial, but has also kind of ramped up commercial lending for some of our clients that weren't doing it in the past. So,
right.
we're definitely doing a lot of that.
You got to fill that void somehow.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's. I love that. So let's. I'm going to switch to Tom. Anybody else that has a question, if you'll pop it in chat, we'll switch to you. But I know my buddy Tom always has a good question. Let me see if I can. I'm going to switch him over. I've got you pinned on my screen. Tom.
Hey, John.
How you doing, man? Thanks for joining
today.
Good
conversation. Good information.
Yeah.
So, what are you guys doing from an API standpoint to open them up more? So, because this has become more critical for credit unions to do those different things, and often we're working with small vendors, might not be in the a core event provider within your ecosystem, but they're interested in doing something with us. So how do we get them exposed to the API?
Yeah, so we run a vendor integration program, and we allow vendors to come work with us, and then we expose them to all of the documentation that you have as a client, as well as support around how to use the API effectively. We give them a sandbox to play in. We help them, spin it up, and then we also do custom programming for our vendors as well. So one of the teams that reports to me does work on that, and we actually contract development time out to vendors, both in Power On, but also in other languages. So if they need help building on their side to receive, we can help them with that as well. So there's a lot of tools at the disposal of a vendor when it comes to working with Symitar specifically, that I think that are available. It's just a matter of making sure that they're plugged in the right way.
Great.
We just got Tom. We just had an interesting demo from Breach Clarity. Do you know who they are?
No.
So it's interesting. So, and I was just thinking about this integration with Symitar from that perspective. So what Breach Clarity does is, let's say that Target gets breached again or whatever, right? And so when you log into your home banking, it has a link there that says, hey, Target was breached and you were part of that. But what's more important about it is it actually goes in and says, here's the level. Okay, all they got was your email address, so don't freak out. Or, well, they got your email address and pictures of your kids and your prescriptions for your glasses. You might want to go and do X, Y, and Z, or you should go do an X, Y. Change your passwords to this. And so it gives you these things to do. But what's interesting to me, Brynn, from your point of view, is these are non-traditional integrations. These are things that are adding value in today's state that are less about kind of these APIs and more about sort of experience, but they need a place on the core, right? So for example, in this particular solution, not saying, Symitar and most cores have the ability to store more than one email address. So, but that's not the issue. You pointed out earlier, it's the culture, right? Are we asking for more than one email address? Are we doing that in the onboarding? Are we setting that up? And so this concept of sort of expanding into these adjacent markets that I think are coming. So for example, hybrid vehicles, I think are going to have sort of a subscription service in the future. I think Tesla's sort of vetting that out right now. There's almost a subscription service to go with every appliance you have in your house. Even, by the way, I saw this online the other day, and this is a question for you, Tom. I think you should ponder this. Are the washer and dryer coworkers or friends? So just think about that for a bit. But anyway, so this concept where your washer, your dryer, your appliances all have this subscription-based model, and now they're even talking about this idea of lending being sort of more connected to where, you've got a car, you didn't pay for it, it doesn't start. You didn't pay your loan, yeah, it's going to be wherever it last is because we know. And these are becoming more the norm. So these non-traditional fintechs, are you seeing more of that, Brynn? Are you seeing kind of these non-traditional things come through at all? And if so, what are you seeing?
Yeah, we are actually. It's interesting to me. Even I've been in this industry for a while, and I'm trying to stay up on what's new and what's happening. And every week my VIP manager sends me an email that says, okay, these are the 5 vendors that have contacted us this week to do work with them. And I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are. Like, they just keep popping up.
It's like
out of the
5
woodwork.
brand new names every week.
It is too. And it's really cool to see on the front end. But yes, we are, I'm never surprised anymore by the variety of solutions and the vastness of integration requests that we get that are coming in. So.
Yeah, we're seeing that too as people come to us, to do integrations. And there are these interesting concepts that take a bit, to your point, you're a process junkie, so you'll like this. It's like fintechs find a portion of the process that is really broken and they fix that portion. And that's really all good and it does help, but then it still has to have some symmetry or connection to the previous process. It can't just be this standalone thing because that's the challenge. And so they need a market and we need the service. And so there's a marriage there. But then, I call it the shiny stuff syndrome. Tom virtually goes to a conference and he comes back with his shiny stuff and he's all excited. He's seen it. He sat through it. But then he gets where he's going and maybe it's not the core, maybe it's not this, maybe it's not that, it's this vendor, that vendor, but there's something that is sort of blocking, in that space. And I think that solutions like yours and others, that's like one of the key things you guys got to start doing is, I'm not saying you're not doing it, but I'm saying like, that's going to be a focus, I guess is what I'm saying, that you're going to see that a lot more. It's sort of like, it isn't about replacing this whole process. It's about putting this little niche piece in this spot, like a gap insurance or something special around the refi or some solar add-on to a mortgage that makes it more financially viable to the credit union now and more of a, it helps with the spread or whatever it is. And I imagine those are going to come up a lot more. So in anticipation of seeing more of this integration in the digital play, did you guys staff up? Did you change your business strategy? Did you, you have more consultants out now? Have you shifted to more of this type of work and less around sort of these bigger, more, more monolithic integrations?
So I have an eye to it. We haven't staffed up at this point because we haven't needed to yet. It's definitely on the radar. Something that.
So are you getting some of the economies of scale of not having to go there? So that's carrying you a little bit, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. But we're also, I think, one of the interesting things that we're seeing is a change in the type of work that we're doing too, which has kind of changed the way that we're able to leverage our resources. So, maybe instead of doing more traditional build work, we're being brought in as consultants a lot more too with vendors. And so that's helping us, spread our resources across multiple channels, and use the same resources to, in different ways to get the same end revenue results. But yeah, it's been really interesting to kind of see this all play out, and really in the last 6 months, to see some of that shift.
Well,
but definitely a big
shake out even more as, like Tom, you were talking about your budget and what you were looking at, and we heard, Tom was on that GAC call with the CEOs. Well, I think we heard everybody say a significant portion of their 2021-22 strategy and money is going more towards digital. Would you say that was a fair statement, Tom?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, it has to.
So
Right.
theoretically, that means more work for you, more work for every core, that's out there. But I don't know that. I also think you make such a good point about, like, and Tom and I have discussed this a million times, that you can put as much technology as you want in, but if you don't shift the culture, it's just not going to matter. We were talking about data analytics, which I imagine would be another, probably was a front burner, and then suddenly having to shore up a bunch of stuff. But when they get done with that, they're going to go back to that, hole in the boat and start bailing again. And I think that, I'm sure you've seen plenty of that and plenty of requests for open data and those sorts of solutions. Well, we're getting towards the end here. Did you have anything you wanted to say, under oath here in this EU town hall that we will hold you to absolutely and post this everywhere that I did not? And you've been a tremendous guest. Thank you for your time. Is there anything I missed that you wanted to say or cover?
No, we definitely, I think, covered a lot of base and a lot of ground, and it was fun. I had a good time.
Yeah, well, thank you. James Brooke Fraser referred you, and as you know, James is my digital twin. So I'm actually, we're the same. I just wear this hat to try to sort of throw people off. But no, we appreciate all you're doing in the industry. You're always welcome back, and thank you for sharing. I think there was a lot of good stuff that people heard, regardless of their core. Although we recognize your piece there, but everybody's got the same problems. It's all. It's all the, Mexican restaurant. It's the same 5 ingredients. It's just kind of rolled one thing and folded another. And I think we're all struggling at the moment. Not struggling so much in a bad way, but like, hey, there's opportunity here, and how do we shift to grab it? So hearing how you're helping people, and particularly chasing the process stuff, is really important. I think it's an aspect that you can hire any chop shop to go build APIs, but having someone come in and really think through this process and think it through from the angles of the call center and all the other people, it's not easy for them to absorb those changes. So I think that's a really important aspect of it. All right, well, I think that's it. So we'll call this one. Thank you for your time. And if someone wants to find you or get in touch with you, how do they do it?
I am Brynn Ammon, so the first 2 initials of my first name, last name, @jackhenry.com.
BRM, I did like a CRM, but a BRM.
Yeah. Yep. I'm Bramman.
Bramman. I like it. That's easy. Bramman, like you said, like that. I like it.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, for those of you that are interested, CUNA GAC is next week, the virtual. I will actually be facilitating a rather long meeting. Tom will be on there. It was a really good meeting, and I'll actually be there for the chat and joining in and doing some other things there. So we encourage you to go sign up if you haven't already. Plus, I found this out today. Brynn, did how you guys always give out your, SEC has always been one of my favorite conferences. You always have some sort of cool bag, right? How do you do that with the conference? So these guys have an email thing where you go in, you put in your address, and they send you a work from home kit. So I'm excited to see what's in the work from home kit. I'm expecting a poncho, some junior mitts, possibly some sort of defibrillator, and I don't know,
cookies
a shoehorn.
and cookies.
That's what I'm thinking.
I would expect cookies. Beer. Oh, Tom's voting beer.
Beer. Yes, I forgot alcohol. I'm sorry, Tom. I should have realized.
You can't have GAC without beer. That is true.
That is true. And cigars. You probably should get a cigar.
Well, absolutely.
So, all right, guys. Well, thank you for your time, Tom. I'll see you next week for the GAC.
Sounds good. All righty.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Oh, a question from Paul. Hey, Paul, if you joined the JAC, they sent out an email that said to send in your address. Melissa will catch you and take care of it for you, my assistant. So she'll see if she can find it and forward it to you. Bye, Brynn. Thank you so much.
Bye, John. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, great conversation.
Have a good one.
You too.